Ghouls and Gals, and welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Hillary, and if you guys are returning, well, you must be coming back because my videos are so good, so thank you to you or thank you to me. So tonight we're going to be covering the Black Dahlia, and this has stuck with me for years. I remember when I was a kid in middle school when the movie The Black Dahlia came out, and it was probably not as scary as I remember it, but I remember it being pretty scary for like a 12-year-old. I'm not gonna waste any more time, we're just gonna get right on into the video. The Black Dahlia's name was Elizabeth Short. She was born in Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts, in July 29th, 1924. Elizabeth was the third of 5 daughters to Cleo and Phoebe Short, and they were pretty well off. They were like middle class. Her dad would make miniature golf courses. I don't know if there's big money in miniature golf courses, but I guess there was at the time. Until, of course, the crash. There was a stock market crash, and then they went broke. Now, I'm not really a big fan of Elizabeth's dad, because in 1930 they found his car abandoned. Right after the crash and they lost all their money, they just found his car abandoned, and everyone thought he had committed suicide. They thought he had killed himself. So Elizabeth's mother and all of her other siblings, they end up moving, and she takes up as a bookkeeper to support the family. Now, her mother thought that her father was dead. She moved on with the kids. She was taking care of the kids, and guess what happens? A letter appears, and yeah, he just ran away from the family. He moved to California, just decided to chill there, you know, dip out on his kids and his wife, and wasn't like adult enough to tell them like, hey, want a divorce? No, he just left, ditched his whole family, pretended to commit suicide, and then later on sent a letter apologizing, which Elizabeth's mom never forgave him for. Good on her, because that was douchey. In 1942 is when Short's mother got the letter from her father, and from there, I don't know why, Short decided to move out to California with her father. Now, she hadn't seen her father since she was 6 years old, so over 10 years, Dad. Thanks. But she moved out there with her dad to California. She wanted to be she was an aspiring actress. So she went out there with her dad to go act, I'm assuming. But sadly, that didn't last. There was a lot of arguments between her and her father. They didn't get along. Her dad would complain that she wouldn't clean and wouldn't make food and that she was lazy, so she ended up moving out of her father's house in 1943. Kind of funny how the mom could take care of them for so long and the dad had 1 year with her, but like, we'll just disregard that. From there, she took a job at Base Exchange Camp Cook, and it was a army base. A lot of the army guys would hit on her, and that's actually where she met a man that she would become engaged to. So this is where she met Major Matthew Michael Gordon Jr. He was like a really decorated, I guess, soldier, and he asked her to marry him, and it was love, man. Like, they would exchange letters back and forth, but sadly, it was not meant to be because he passed away. He died in a plane crash August 10th, 1945, and that was a day before he was supposed to return home to come see her. She got the message from his mother, wrote a telegram, and that was it. She was heartbroken, obviously, when your love dies in a plane crash, so that sucks. So after all that happened, Short relocated. She worked as a waitress, and in the last 6 months of her life, she spent it in South Hollywood. Now, she was described as a would-be actress, although there are no movies that you can see her in. Unfortunately, she didn't become famous until her murder, so we still know her today, but unfortunately, we only know her for her death. The last time Short was seen was January 9th, 1947. She had had dinner with Robert Red Manley, was one of the last people to see her alive. He dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel, which is actually a super haunted location, we'll reference later. dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel. She was on the phone, and a couple staff members said that they saw her in the hotel. But after that, that was the last time anybody would see her until they found her body. On the morning of January 15th, 1947, this is where Short was found. She was found on Norton Avenue, and there was a mother walking her child across the street. And at this time, there was no houses. It was a vacant lot for developers to develop. They saw what they thought was a mannequin, and this mannequin was severed in the middle, had a Glasgow smile carved up her face, and there are photos of this, but I am not going to include them. If you want to look at it, you can go ahead and search it, but it's pretty bad, so I don't really want to be putting that on here. Originally, the mom that saw Elizabeth thought that she was just a mannequin. She was so pale that she did not look alive. She thought it was a Halloween decoration. Probably a little too early for a Halloween decoration, but she did not think she was a person until she got a little closer and realized this is a person. And then she ran to a neighbor's house and called the police. So her body was severed, and a lot of people believe that how it was severed, it was a doctor or somebody that had anatomical knowledge, because you usually can't perform something like that without precision. Her body was posed in a certain way. It was laid out strangely, and there was a lot of stuff done to it. It had turned out that she had died, I believe, from bleeding out, and I think it was from the cuts in her face. So she was tortured. She was literally tortured before dying, and she ended up dying from bleeding out, which is disgusting. But now they were able to identify Short so quickly because she had had her fingerprints in the system for when she worked at the army base, and also there was a little incident when she was younger. She had gotten arrested for drinking underage, and so they found out who she was via her fingerprints. Now, nobody told Short's mother that she had died. Not a cop called her, not a detective, nobody called her. Do you want to know how the mother found out that her child had died? A reporter called her, said that she had won a beauty pageant, and asked for all of the info on her for the expose. So after finding out, being on the phone with this woman for 10-15 minutes, finding out all of the info, after that he was like, yeah, your daughter's dead. And that's how he told her. Like, as a reporter, I don't really know what your problem is, man. Like, I get there's a story, but you're gonna trick somebody into telling you all these things. Like, you're a gross dude. I know you're dead, but you're gross. Now, here are some of the suspects. I'm only gonna give you a few of them because there was over 100, and some of them aren't even worth mentioning. So I'm only gonna give you what I think are the most relevant. Now, the first one was Robert Red Manley. He was the last person to see her. He dropped her off at the Biltmore. He was also married while hanging out with her and had a kid, but I do not think that he was the one to kill her. He took a polygraph test, and I don't really know how reliable a polygraph test is back then. Like, probably just a guy with a pencil doing this. But it came back clear, and he was also very helpful. Like, he came in, the police asked all his questions, and he was later cleared. I believe his mother and some other people he was having dinner with, and it just didn't line up, so they took him off as a suspect. But because he's the last person that saw her, that's why we're putting him on this list. Now, after this as well, Robert's life kind of went way downhill. After her death, his wife ended up having to put him in a mental hospital he had some mental issues, and he was there, and he ended up dying. I'm not sure how many years later, but he died to the day, the exact day that the Dahlia died, like right around that time, he fell and died in the mental institution. So, Now, our next suspect is Joseph A. DoMayas, and he was a soldier. He is actually somebody who confessed to murdering her. He believed he had had a blackout, and during this blackout, he killed Elizabeth. But he actually gave a 50-page statement to the LAPD saying that he killed her. Like, I don't know how you fill 50 pages of I had a blackout and I killed her, but that's what he did. Later on, he was actually also ruled out because during the time he had his blackout, he was at his army base, so he was not able to kill her. They ruled him out. And I don't know what it is with people claiming I killed her. It doesn't make sense to me. Why? Like, you want notoriety for killing someone? Like, you'll go to jail. Do you know that? He had also claimed that he had married Elizabeth in 1937, which was later disproved because you would have been 12 years old. Didn't do it. And our last suspect, who is the grossest, is Dr. George Hodel. I also think he is the most compelling at this time. A lot of people think he did it, including his own son, who was a detective and has spent his life trying to prove that his dad did it. So let's get in on to George Hodel. Now, already, first off, George Hodel, if he did not commit these murders, was an awful guy. His daughter, Tamar Hodel, he was sexually abusing her from a young age, to which she ended up taking him to court, and he actually got off. He knew a lot of police, he knew a lot of judges, because at the time he was a doctor in Hollywood. So already he was a doctor. He had knowledge of how to bisect a body, or dissect a body. George Hodel's son has shown pictures of this woman that they found in a family book that he thought literally looked exactly like the Black Dahlia, so he took that in, and before it wasn't, people didn't really think that it was her, and later on, I think in like 2014, they think it could be her, which is really hard because photographs are old and you don't know, but it was a book that they found in his father's old stuff after he had already died. When they were kids, they had this secret room in the house that they weren't allowed to go to, and a lot of people don't know whether or not it's because he had like a big collection of nude stuff, or possibly was torturing girls in his house. We don't know. He used to have these huge parties where he would pass his daughter around and a bunch of other things that, to me, already, like, I feel like you did it. We don't know you did it, but you might have done it. Now, later on, they had taken cadaver dogs to the house where they lived, and these cadaver dogs have gone off in places saying that they smell bodies right around the house. So we don't know for sure, but I feel like that's a good sign that something has gone on there. Whether or not it has to do with Elizabeth Short, something's gone on at that house. So after he was brought in for all this stuff, the police decided to bug his house. And I'm gonna read parts of the transcript for you now. And just a quick intervention here. George Hodel would claim how smart he was. He would go on and on and on about how smart he was. He had an IQ 1 point higher than Einstein. He loved to brag about it. So this is what I thought was just hilarious before I read this transcript. It's 1940. How are you putting a bug in his house? Are they not like huge recording machines? Like, it's not even a tape. It's not like you have a phone and you're recording it. The machines that they used to record things back then were like these huge tapes. So did someone have to go in and flip it? Like, how do you not know that someone is recording you when the tape is the size of the room that you're sitting in? Side note. Okay, so now I'm just gonna read the transcript, and it says, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia. They can't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead. They thought there was something fishy. Anyway, now they may have figured it out. Killed her, maybe I did kill my secretary." Now, he is referring to his secretary, and it is said that his secretary had some information on him that he didn't like, died of a drug overdose, and he was there. He was right beside her, and that's still kind of muddy on how she died. Now, this is kind of where two serial killers cross paths, because there was also a killing that happened in the lipstick serial killings, which might be something that I get into later, but for now, a lot of people, or some people, think that George Hodel had something to do with it. There was a young girl who had died, and her body was also cut, similar to how Short was, and Elizabeth's body was found literally almost the same street, like it was just down a little bit, and the street that's right next to the street where she was found is the same last name as the little girl who was murdered in this separate case. So some people think that George Hodel actually has murdered before, and that he meant to put the body on the street that was the little girl's last name, just to like be like, here, I did it. Just because back then, you know, I don't know what it is with killers wanting to write letters to everybody, write letters to the police saying that, oh, I did it. There was a letter that went regarding the Black Dahlia, and they wrote a bunch of stuff in it. They had her wallet, they had her ID, they had like a phone book, and the paper that they had written it on, somebody had doused in gasoline to like remove fingerprints off of the sheet of paper. So a lot of people assume that George Hodel had done this before. Now, obviously, we will never know. We can only assume who did it. Enough time has passed, and the majority of people in this case are already dead. It's been years. So we're probably never going to find out who did it, although, in my opinion, George Hodel is one of the big ones. He is, even if you didn't do it, you're awful, and I just think he did it. I don't know why. I think he done it. So anyway, before this video gets too long, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments who you think did it. I know I've given, it's kind of a outweighed here. There's two guys that kind of got dismissed, and then the one guy that I actually think did it. A little unfair, but feel free to let me know. Feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment if you guys want, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks, bye.